So we are again coming to you live at this time of the day on Mondays with a yet another program dedicated to the education on hypnosis. We are delighted to have Maria-Pilar Gonzalez again with us from Beacon Hypnotherapy Institute. Welcome, Maria-Pilar. And just to start off this week, interested in learning more about your practice and how it can be applied to our daily life. So we are not apart from what the current occurrences that have touched so deeply our community right here in South Florida, with the loss of many lives and this accident or this tragedy from the Champlain buildings. And we were just talking before starting, Maria-Pilar, what is the role of hypnosis for this particular circumstance in the mourning and the grieving of so much loss. And I was just curious about it and decided to propose this topic today. So we are eager to learn more, Maria-Pilar. What is hypnosis? What role can it play with all of these situations? Welcome.
Good morning or good afternoon. How are you? And welcome, everyone. And yes, as you said, we're all part of this world we live in. Tragedies occur and natural disasters, all kinds of things. So it doesn't matter where we are and who we are. We're all touched by this. So, as you said, this building here in Miami Beach that just collapsed last week. And yes, there's tragedy. We don't know yet what's going to happen, who is going to be found. And we're talking today in general about, how to deal with the inevitable with hypnosis. So let me just start that I think dealing with grief or the inevitable is something that we have to realize that we have no control over. And that loss of control makes us very vulnerable, I think. And it becomes very, I think, more personal and very emotional when we talk about death and the loss of life, even for people that we may not know. But it's almost making us remember that something like this, that, in the middle of the night, your building collapses, you're asleep and you don't know what happened, that's it. And it is scary, of course, because we put ourselves in a situation like that and we think it must be horrible, scary, what if, how can we be safe? But we really have to understand that we really have no control over death, which is the ultimate fear that we all have. And with hypnosis, I think because we can access the unconscious and those deeper levels of our awareness and universal consciousness, we become aware that there is another part of us, which is not this human physical body that we are, who ultimately is the part of us that dies. And when we can understand that there is such a bigger part of us, we can deal with that in a less traumatic way. And not to say that this is not something sad and horrible, don't get me wrong, but we can, I think, separate ourselves from really what it is, death in itself as a human body, and who we really are. And that we are going, and that there is so much more beyond the death of the physical body. And I think that seems to be a very difficult concept to accept as a human being. Whether we're reaching old age and we see ourselves becoming older and less responsive, less capable of doing things, or we see something like this accident, this tragedy, which happened suddenly and we had no control. But when we ourselves understand that we need to just allow the flow of life to go, we can also accept these things when we try to control it, we realize more and more how out of control we really are about these situations. It could happen anytime, anywhere, really. I mean, think about the world we live in, in traffic, airplanes. I mean, if you think about, I don't know, even shark attacks, alligators, whatever. I mean, what are the chances of someone really being bitten by a shark or by an alligator? And it happens, and some people really even come through those tragedies and survive them. So what can we do? Just accept those things can happen, and that we don't really have much that we can do about it.
So we have seen many families come together to mourn their loved ones. I know there's a lot going on. It has been documented many times over the years how the dual, the mourning process happens, and of course at least there's a denial, and little by little, well, there's more acceptance starts to happen. But then there are other emotions involved, like a lot of guilt. People start regretting, like, if I could have done something. There's this whole thing, and you told me that you have over the years have clients that have come to you with a lot of guilt involving the loss of a loved one, being a human being, or even being a pet. Something that is lost, and we always have these. We will carry this burden for maybe years, hopefully not that long, but of things that we think that we could have done to prevent. For instance, that call that I never made, things like that.
Yeah.
And so how is hypnosis helpful in this situation?
This is something, it reminds me, years back, there was these bracelets that I think it was the Catholic Church that used to give out and talk about what would Jesus do, WWJD. And I always liked that phrase, because I think if we live our lives thinking that way, not that you have to be Catholic or believe in Jesus, but in general, meaning do every day the best you can. As they say, tell the loved ones you love them, do the things that you know are right. So you have no regrets. And I think when we deal with grief, that is a huge part of that regret, the guilt. And then when there's regret and guilt especially, then we need to punish ourselves, right? Because that's how the judicial system works, deals with guilt. You're guilty, then you're judged, and you get sentenced. And we do that in our own mind on an emotional level. So when we live our life realizing or doing the best we can, whether someone we love perishes or even for our own death, we don't lay there and think, oh my goodness, I should have, could have, would have, no. If you have done it, then you can say, well, I'm good. I can lay my head on the pillow, as they say, and sleep every night in peace. Well, you can take that longer rest, even at death, then, with that peace of mind. And we need to understand how that works for us. With hypnosis, I work on a lot of guilt, and almost in every aspect that the person comes to see me, we have to deal with some kind of guilt, believe it or not. And under hypnosis, because again, we go into this deeper state of mind, it is so freeing. Even oftentimes I have phrases that the person has to repeat, like, forgive me, or we all know the Ho'oponopono, I'm sorry, please forgive me. I love you, thank you. For your own peace of mind, it is so relieving. And that's where the guilt then goes, because we all make mistakes. And ultimately, we feel regret that we should have done better. And what lays beyond then our death, or these people that have died? Did I do all I should have, could have done? So if we live our daily lives doing the best we can, then we don't have the regrets, and we can accept whatever happens with that peace of mind. I've seen people with a huge guilt about even a pet passing away because they didn't bring the pet inside, left it outside. The next morning, some animal had attacked it and found it in front of the door. And oh, I could have, the poor animal died because of me, and I didn't do the right thing. But there's a much deeper emotion than just I let this poor animal die and it was my guilt. I should have brought it in. Because how often has that animal been outside and been fine? So ultimately, when it is our time to go, it is our time to go. Our soul has a certain time to be here to learn something, and if that time is gone, the only way to leave a body is what we call death. And death happens through age, illness, or accidents, and we were talking earlier that someone actually told me that some of the people, quite a few of the people that were in the building that collapsed, had actually come from other countries to the US, to Miami, to receive the COVID-19 vaccine. So it's almost like they were avoiding a tragedy one way, and we're caught in this. So when it is time for this body, or rather the soul, to leave this body, it will happen one way or another. Remember 9/11, how many people had these things happen that morning where they spilled coffee on themselves and didn't make it to the building, or they got up late and rushed and didn't make it for that train and were just 10 minutes late, and that they were not in the building. And what makes that happen? How coincidental is that? It is really, I think, rather the fact that this soul wasn't the day for this to happen. Or where even in this building, I am sure we will find people that even after 2 weeks will be alive and okay. And, who chooses that? It's not just people being dug out quicker or less quick. There's so much bigger behind this whole picture. And energetically, I think if we can focus when we have such a tragedy on the energy that we can send whoever is there, is really more of sending them peace so they can either let go of the physical body if they're supposed to leave, or then give them the strength to trust that if they're to survive, they will survive. And that's, I think, a very huge attitude in life to begin with, no?
Yeah, we have heard crazy stories about, couples. I heard about a friend of mine, their uncles. The wife survived. She was rushed to the hospital, whilst the husband hasn't been found. So imagine all these, the things that might come to you by listening to this, knowing this. Why me? Why am I alive and he's not? No, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking that, life is so similar to a sports match, sports game. Like you see things that happen that are not expected. Like you receive a goal. Like we're watching this cup right now, and
Yeah.
it's so frustrating. Even some mistakes that are made are so silly, and yet life goes on. You have to cope. You have to really understand that it's limited. Even if you remain alive, it's a limited event. Life is a limited event.
It is.
At least in this dimension.
Yes.
So I feel that hypnosis is good for these type of things, because you can identify that particular fear uh, for the for the limited, for what's really really very very short in the spectrum of time. A lifetime is really really something very very short, and yet we still have the chance to learn so much, and the more we can learn with this opportunity, the better for us, for evolution, right? So uh, have you noticed any correlation between, you know, the times, the lifespan of a person and some kind of programming, some kind of past experience, even past life experience?
Yes, I'm not exactly sure what you're asking, but I think,
I
um,
mean, people are programmed in a way, are
yeah.
predestined to something like a short life or a longer life.
I think there's several factors here that I have over the years encountered. One is if someone has had a short life in a previous life, where maybe through either tragedy, accident, or war or something, a person died early. When that time comes, let's say someone passed at 25, when now in this life the person comes to be 25, there seems to be some kind of anxiety or worry happen or coming through. And once that is over, it seems to be then okay. It's like, all right, that's over. We're done. We're good. It didn't happen again. Um, Also, from what I have studied, um, we reincarnate every 144 years. So if your lifetime exceeded, obviously not 144 years, but if you lived a shorter life one time, maybe the next time you come around, you get more years added, or the other way around. So that can vary apparently, but that's what we see. What's usually more dramatic is when you have young children pass. And when that happens, we wonder why there's so many bad people that should be dead, really. I mean, that's what most people think, right? And not an innocent child. But that innocent child had a purpose. And through coming for maybe even just a few years, um, either the child learned or the parents learned from that experience, or it wasn't the right time for the experience to happen, and then it's like, oh wait, let me go back and I'll come back later. So there are different things. Again, with hypnosis, I think we get such an insight into this other part of who we are, and I think that's the biggest dilemma we have as a human being, or for many people that don't know what we are beyond this physical body. So we're a spiritual being in a physical body through which we have experiences, but we're not this. In this lifetime, I am Maria-Pilar Gonzalez, but I was someone else in another lifetime, and I will be someone else later on, sometime from now. And that is the difference that we have to understand. When we know that, then we are more open to accept the inevitable, which, as you said, the end of all this is really our death. And when we have the situations there, we know that we have no control. I think we're reminded subconsciously of that ending that we have no control over. And that's what makes us be afraid. And I just lost the train of thought. But
Yeah. So many things are right now being speculated, you know, about the reasons, explanations on what happened. The fact is, it happened, and we will focus really on how we feel. What is it that we can do, that in order to move on, basically to cope, move on, and there's a lot to process. Of course, as a community, we try to, you know, try to articulate everything with theories, we know there was a structure failure in a way, and they're investigating that. But we want to know about these perhaps contracts or agreements, because we see when you see something like massive happen, like remember 9/11 or different occurrences, we sometimes think, is this something that they agreed on, like souls agree on something? Uh, have you experienced also any of these in your practice? Have you heard about anything like that? I know it could be just speculating, but do you
Yeah.
feel there's something, some real connection between souls at some point when they all depart, like in a group, something like that?
Yeah, I mean, it is known that we do um, come back in groups, souls, so that the same group of souls come back during a period of time, again, in different roles, but still connected. And I think there is what we call then karma. There is personal karma that each, what are the lessons each individual has to learn. But then we also have cultural or societal karmas, which means if you how many 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, you were a warrior in a very vicious, let's say, tribe that killed a lot of people and caused a lot of pain, then you probably will come then in another lifetime, maybe being victimized in order to learn what it is to be on the other side, because you may not have realized what you did in that other previous lifetime. So as a group, of course, I think you may then come in a cultural society where now this culture has been victimized, or so there is a lot of that going on too, which I believe may be happening. Also, remember we're in a time where humanity is changing, is evolving, and in order for the soul to evolve, they need to be called and be, gone somewhere else in order to come back as this new evolved human being, whether it is here or somewhere else. And this is a whole Pandora box I'm opening here where we're going with this. But that's where we have to understand that death is not the end. Through society and culture and religion, we've been drilled for thousands of years that death is a punishment. But when we understand that death is not a punishment, then we can accept it for what it is. It's a graduation. You graduate, you move on to a higher grade, and some have to repeat the grade. But that doesn't mean it's the end of you. And I think that's what we identify with the ego, which is this, pinch me, this is me. Or, there's the other side of me, the other part of me, which is that spiritual being that has a chance to move on then. And that's why it's so important also to know that we live our life to the fullest. And that's why it's so important with hypnosis, one, and then every day, do the best you can. So tomorrow you don't have regrets. Do the best you can so that after 20 years of doing the best you can, you won't have regrets. After 50 years, 80 years, whenever your time is up, you've done all you could have done. Could we sometimes along the way, as they say, looking back, hindsight is 20/20, of course. But it's just like telling a 10th grader, telling a first grader, oh, you can't do math. Well, no, you can't expect a first grader to know the math a 10th grader does. But you can't, punish yourself for not having known in first grade what you know in 10th grade. And that is the same with life. Maybe years ago you regret not having acted one way or the other with a person or in a situation, and you regret it. It's okay, because as long as you then not repeat the same thing, you're good. That means you learned the lesson and you move on. As they say, God forgives. Who are we not to forgive ourselves then? Are we bigger than God? So don't go back and hold yourself guilty or feel guilt over what you may have done. Again, I go back to Ho'oponopono. You know, I am sorry, please forgive me, I love you, thank you. Let it go. Just don't repeat it. That's all. You know, and even if every time you catch yourself repeating it, okay, become aware, correct it, move on. And that's called a restriction and a correction. And that, ladies and gentlemen, this is how you correct karma. That's how you fix karma. You make a restriction and then you make the correction. And then you hopefully not repeat it. And you have to be aware of that. And every day, the better you do, the more you have then an open range. And honestly, I do believe for most people, and I've seen this actually, I've seen people who've lived a life not doing the best. And they had a brush with death, where they haven't died, but they were quite ill. And in those moments of worry, and they've come to me, and when you make peace, you know, they realize, okay, and then they get better, and all of a sudden everything is back out the window and they're back to who they were. Well, why did you suddenly become so worried about what you could have done, should have done, and regrets, when you know your life is ending? And then once you're past that, it's like, I don't care, you know, I'm back to my old self. Well, no, you know, you got a chance, fix it, change it, because the moment we die, we will revisit that. And then you have your own regrets. And before we even go, you know, we lay there and it's like, oh my goodness, you know, what's going to happen now? So as we accept that for ourselves, then we can also accept it for others, and we can just send them that peace, that hopefully to accept the inevitable then.
Sometimes it seems to me that if we had the chance to see the whole picture, no, of all the collection of lifetimes.
And hypnosis, you said it. I mean, you used perfect words. Hypnosis, that's why I say when we go into that unconscious, that's where we get more of that sense of the bigger picture, and it's easier to let go. Definitely. Definitely.
We would save so much, you know, grief, and just by understanding that we will be together at some point. And I mean, when there's love, when there's connection, that definitely will not pass. And I was talking to a friend this morning, and he said that he was going through hypnosis, and he even found that he has still pending issues from a life he had in the 10th century.
There you go.
So
yep,
that doesn't surprise me, because these are only episodes, and unless we face all the, you know, all these pending lessons that we have, and we address them.
Challenge.
Exactly. Yeah. We will be repeating and repeating. So no matter how many lives, it will be like, you know, like repeating the same grade over and over again. So if we just had the chance to see the whole spectrum of what it is about being here, you know, because we get confused. I mean, we forget. We come here and we start doing the things that they tell us to do. Like, you have to get education, and you have to become this, become that. You have to be, you know, own this, own that. Be a proud father. Be, you know, proud business person. And we forget what are the real lessons that we need to address in this life.
I think we can take a little, like a cheat sheet, right? Something that gives us a little glimpse into why are we here, is whatever is your challenge in this life, whatever makes it that difficult for you to accept, whatever makes you stumble over and over again, that is where you have to work. And it's easy to say, well, this is happening because of this person, that person, this situation, and point fingers. But remember, when you point one finger out, there are three pointing it back at you. So don't blame others. It is the hardest thing to accept. But as I tell my clients, it's like it's between you and you, or maybe you and me, but that's where it goes. But understand, challenge yourself to say, why am I in this situation? I don't care how bad it is, how much you can blame someone else for it. Okay, fine, blame someone else, but then, sit down and say, okay, why me? Why do I'm doing this? Why am I in this situation too? And it takes a lot because you have to admit your own faults. You have to admit your own, shortcomings. And who wants to do that? But that's where you grow. That's where you grow. And it's one of the first things I learned doing this in hypnosis. And when you do hypnosis, that's what comes at you. And oftentimes it's difficult to do, like in meditation, to do this work on your own because your ego comes in and says, no, I don't accept this. But when you do it with someone under hypnosis, there is someone who guides you and say, okay, look at this, look at that. And it becomes easier to then become aware of this and change it because you become aware of it. You change it. I don't. Hypnosis, as I say, is not a magic wand, although I do have one, but it's a plastic wand. But it's yourself who makes the change, And when we get to that point, wow, it's almost instantly. I had a young woman who was feeling sad and had all these issues because her father never told her how proud he was of her. There was another sibling who did better, who was also more successful, and she had this, guilt about, I failed as a daughter. She was also divorced and remarried now a second time, and that wasn't going well. And we did this session, and I had an email the next day where she says the moment she had gotten to the car because of the session, she had forgiven her father and said, okay, I accept it. I accept my own limitations. I'm fine. I accept myself. I love myself. I'm not going to hold any regrets over what I have done or not in life. The moment she got to the car, her father called her. And out of the blue, he's like, I don't think I ever told you how proud I am of you. Now, come on. And this woman was way in her 30s, and out of the blue, this happens now suddenly. So you see how we're connected. So if there are people in this building now, let's send them whatever they need, whether to survive or let go. Because if we, as a soul, are afraid to go through that life, then we stay attached in this life, like in that movie, The Sixth Sense, and we don't go. Which means we don't as a soul evolve, because once we leave, we learn, then we revisit this lifetime. What did I learn? What did I not? Okay, ready to go back. And while you're stuck here, as we've talked about attached entities, you're stuck. You're not going anywhere. You're neither graduating nor moving on to college nor repeating the grade. You're stuck. Nothing is happening. And that's no good. That's definitely no good. So we have to have also this insight of letting people go when they're ready to go. I mean, if the doctors, in hospitals can keep you alive because there's something you can fix and your life can be, you can regain your life, of course, keep going. But oftentimes we then plug people into machines and all, and it's like, no. Oftentimes the soul is already gone. What's just hanging there is the physical, but the soul is already gone. So there's a lot of aspects here that we have to understand and see. And when we make peace with that, we can accept the inevitable much better and easier. No, it's interesting, to say the least.
Well, I certainly enjoy so much talking to you, Maria-Pilar, because you not only give us the clinical or the practice per se of hypnosis, you also give us a little more, phone explanation on what you see, what you experience, and everything related to this other realm that we are so interested in learning about. So we have Cecilia. She was asking how we can learn which karma we have. Well, I would say it's through hypnosis, basically.
Well, we can see through hypnosis, and often, like I said, whatever is difficult for you in life, whether, some people have difficult time being in a relationship. Some people have problems with authority. Some people have problems with self-love or worries, or whatever it is that challenges you, makes it difficult for you to be happy. That's probably a good pointer into that direction. And then, again, with hypnosis, because of that, that's the presenting issue. We go and it gives you the origin and the why, and how to then accept and let it go. That's really how we work it. So the presenting issue is one thing, and then that takes into unraveling this whole string of events that may be causing all this. But then ultimately we see why this is happening in our life. And then once we undo that knot, then it becomes better. We accept then the situations, or know how to deal with it differently. The approach is different. That's really what it is.
And I just wanted to say, just to wrap things up, in such a loving way, we are invited, because I see no other way to put it. I mean, we are invited to come back every time that is necessary, so we can, work on that, so we can, get over, so many obstacles.
Yeah.
And in such a loving way, because this life is given to us. There's no guarantee, but we're always, receiving this opportunity. So we better make good use of it.
Exactly. Day by day, we get another chance. Yeah. We get 365 days out of the year, and now we get we live even longer, which means there is a reason why. We obviously have improved as human beings if we're given even that much more time to live, don't we? So I think that's a lot to be done every day.
Unfortunately, we are able to, use these techniques that have been there for the longest time.
Thousands of years.
Thousands of years, exactly. And that you so beautifully, practice and, serving the community here in South Florida. So if anyone is interested, make sure you visit Beacon Hypnotherapy Institute. This is your website.
Yes.
And you can call Maria-Pilar directly to her number, 305-595-1699.
That's right.
Or just write us and we'll lead you to the right direction. This is coming to you through different platforms. Of course, your social media, Beacon Hypnotherapy, in all Institute. Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. We're also on IAAAM. Maria-Pilar is member of the International Association of Alternative and Ancient Medicine, which we invite you to follow and learn more. If you're a therapist, you can learn the possibilities of having your own show. And just make sure you subscribe and follow any of the platforms where you are watching this right now, so you can get updates every time we are on the air. Maria-Pilar is always, as usual, so interesting, because this is just a fragment of our existence. And I know it's painful. Try to tell that to someone who is mourning right now. They will send you, very far. But time always teaches us, that beyond the pain, there's a lesson, and there's also great love from the Creator or the universe, that with such a compassion, we are allowed to always come back. So that's very, very beautiful. Maria-Pilar, as always, thank you. And
thank you, Kike.
Hopefully we'll meet again, because we never know.
I'm sure we've met before too. So.
Oh yes.
We'll be back next week, though, and with more interesting topics.
Either this form or in another form.
Or in other forms, yes. Exactly.
All right. So it's been wonderful.
Okay.
being with you, and just tune in every time we are on the air. Follow us, subscribe, and share. See you very soon, Maria-Pilar. Thank you.
Bye.